Welcome to this explainer. Look, if you've ever stared blankly at a screen, desperately trying to articulate some brilliant thought, only to watch it fall completely flat on the page, well, you know exactly how frustrating writing can be. We so often think of great writing as this elusive, magical gift, but honestly, it's not magic at all. It's a learned, highly specialized craft. Today, we're going to look at writing through the lens of architecture and explore how constructing sentences is actually remarkably similar to constructing a building. It's fascinating because our source material points out a hard truth. Writing in any language is inherently difficult. Even native speakers find it extremely challenging to express themselves gracefully and accurately all the time. I mean, think about it. You can have the absolute cleverest, most groundbreaking ideas in the world, but if you have zero control over your sentences, the results are going to be pretty disappointing. Your ability to communicate effectively really comes down to this one core thesis. Mastering sentence structure gives you total control over your ideas. Okay, let's dive into this. Here's our structural blueprint for the explainer. We're going to start with the craft of writing, then we'll gather our raw materials with specialized parts of speech. After that, we'll categorize sentences by meaning, and then we start building. We'll move from building simple sentences up to compound and complex sentences, and finally, we'll construct the compound complex masterpiece. All right, Section 1, the craft of writing, laying the foundation. Just like a strong building, good writing depends on a deep knowledge of a few foundational pillars, specifically 3 of them. First up is grammar. These are the strict, definite rules, how words vary and relate to each other. But correctness alone doesn't actually make your writing effective, and that's exactly where rhetoric and composition step in. Rhetoric is your choice of words and how you effectively arrange them, while composition is putting those parts together into a cohesive whole, words into sentences, sentences into paragraphs. So while grammar is incredibly rigid, rhetoric and composition give us these beautifully flexible standards that are really the result of generations of human communication experiments. Moving right along to Section 2, specialized parts of speech, the raw materials. Now, what's really interesting about this slide is seeing how a single word can seamlessly do 2 jobs at the exact same time. Take the participle. In the example, the retired headmaster distributed the prizes, the word retired comes from a verb. Right? It's an action or a state that happened, but right here in this specific sentence, it's functioning entirely as an adjective describing the noun, the headmaster. Next up, we have the gerund. This is a verb and a noun combined. Take a look at the sentence. She is thinking of leaving her job. The word leaving clearly describes an action, doesn't it? But structurally, it's actually acting as a noun here. It's the object of the preposition of. It's a subtle distinction, sure, but an incredibly powerful tool to have in your writing kit. And then there's the infinitive. This is also a verb and noun combined, but it's super neat because it's so easy to spot. It is always preceded by the word to. So, she wishes to deposit the money. To deposit is the infinitive form of the verb, but in the architecture of this sentence, it acts as the object of the transitive verb wishes. It literally represents the thing that she is wishing for. Finally, let's look at the relative adverb. This one is partly an adverb and partly a conjunction. I was relieved when the program ended. Here, the word when modifies the verb was relieved, giving us that context of time. But simultaneously, it's acting like glue, joining 2 completely distinct statements together into one fluid thought. Okay, Section 3, sentences by meaning, reviewing the blueprints. Before we start pouring concrete, we have to know what we're building. Every sentence you write falls into one of 5 core purposes, acting as the blueprint for your intent. You can make a statement or assertion, like, he is a teacher. You can ask a question, what day is it? Issue a command, go in. Utter an exclamation, if only it would stop raining. Or simply offer a greeting, like, hello. Knowing your purpose dictates the exact structural tools you'll need to reach for next. All right, Section 4. Building simple sentences. Constructing the cottage. A simple sentence is defined as having only one subject-verb combination that expresses a complete thought. But I really want to emphasize something here. Simple absolutely does not mean short. Look at this comparison. Sparks fly upwards is just 3 words. Now look at the 20-word sentence. The tired, dirty, and footsore tourists straggled wearily across the bridge, up the hill, and finally into the rest house. Both of these have the exact same structural integrity. Why? Because that massive, long sentence still only has one subject, the tourists, and one finite verb, straggled. Let's do a quick spot check with an example, right from our source material.
towels and bed sheets sway on the clothesline. Can you spot the subject and the verb? The trick here is realizing that a simple sentence can actually have multiple subjects. Both towels and bed sheets are subjects, and they share a single verb, sway. So even with multiple subjects, structurally, it remains a simple, sturdy little cottage.
Onward to Section 5, Compound and Complex Sentences, the Multi-Story Building. A compound sentence is quite literally made up of two or more complete, independent thoughts. Look at the top here. Dad likes coffee for breakfast. And Mom prefers tea. Those are two perfectly fine, standalone simple sentences. But if we bolt them together using a comma and a joining word, we create a single flowing multi-story structure. Dad likes coffee for breakfast, but Mom prefers tea. And this brilliantly illustrates the specific logical bridges you can build as a writer. Think of these joining words, which are also known as coordinating conjunctions, as your structural connectors. And adds information, while but and yet show contrast. So demonstrates a result, and for explains a cause, or provides alternatives, while nor introduces a second negative statement. It's crazy, but just choosing the right connector completely changes the entire architecture of your thought. Now we introduce the complex sentence. The crucial point to remember here is that unlike a compound sentence, a complex sentence includes one independent statement that can stand alone, and at least one dependent statement that absolutely cannot. It kind of hits you when you realize that the dependent statement acts exactly like an overhang or a balcony on a building. It would literally collapse to the ground if it didn't have the main independent structure there to support it. So how exactly do you create that dependent overhang? Well, you use dependent words, also called subordinating conjunctions. Just look at the list here. Words like after, although, because, until, when. If you take a perfectly independent standalone thought and stick one of these words at the very front of it, you instantly turn it into a dependent clause. And that clause now desperately needs to lean on another sentence to make any sense. Let's look at how this plays out in practice with a test from the source. Which of these is a complex sentence? A. Jack did a U-turn. B. When Jack did a U-turn, his bike skidded. Or C. Jack did a U-turn and he fell off the bike. Have your guess? Well, option B is the right answer. Notice how the word when turns Jack did a U-turn into a dependent clause that must lean on the independent statement, his bike skidded. Finally, Section 6, the compound complex masterpiece, constructing the skyscraper. Let's move to and see how this builds. Look at this incredible skyscraper of a sentence. The Rawal Lake was impressive, but Shahid thought that Lake Saif al-Muluk was really more beautiful than any other lake he had ever seen. Okay. Let's break this down. We have two independent clauses joined by the coordinating word but, and then, attached seamlessly to that second independent clause, is a dependent clause comparing the lakes. It's structurally dense, highly informative, and yet perfectly balanced. Let's do one final spot check from the source material. Take a really close look at option C. When Bobby saw a rainbow, he ran to get his camera, and the rainbow disappeared. This is the masterpiece in action, folks. We have a dependent clause right at the beginning when Bobby saw a rainbow, and it's leaning firmly on two independent clauses that are joined together by the word and. Honestly, it's just structural perfection. So, what does this all mean for us? What should you actually take away from this explainer? Well, I want to challenge you. Look at the last email, report, or essay you wrote, but do it with the critical eye of an architect. Are you relying entirely on simple structures? Are you only building small cottages? By purposefully mastering your joining words and playing around with dependent clauses, you can massively elevate your writing. Your ideas are valuable. Don't you think they deserve to be housed in skyscrapers?